For decades, fans of the Pawn Stars empire have watched Rick Harrison navigate the highs and lows of family and business. But behind the cameras, a devastating truth lingered, one that would shake the very foundation of his family. Now, at 59, Rick confirms what many feared. His son is serving a life sentence. How did it come to this? What does it mean for a family built on trust, loyalty, and public attention? The answers are more complicated and more human than anyone could imagine. Before the bright lights of Las Vegas and the cameras that would eventually follow him everywhere, Rick Harrison's life was rooted in ordinary routines and family traditions. The Harrison home was filled with the kind of energy only a small business and a growing family could create. Constant movement, chatter, and the rhythmic clink of coins and collectibles. The pawn shop, which would later become world famous, wasn't just a source of income, it was the heart of the family. Deals were made at the counter, life lessons were imparted alongside transactions, and the smell of polished wood and leather filled the air like an invisible thread binding them together. Corey Harrison, Rick's son, grew up in this environment of structure and expectation, surrounded by the ebb and flow of customers, the excitement of rare finds, and the lessons of entrepreneurship. He learned early that life had both rules and rewards. On the surface, Corey's childhood seemed full of opportunity. Access to the family business, the freedom of a Las Vegas upbringing, and the support of parents who wanted the best for him. Yet beneath this apparent stability, subtle signs of struggle began to emerge. Corey was spirited, independent, and sometimes stubborn, qualities that could have been strengths, but occasionally led to tension within the family. Friends and family recall moments that hinted at future challenges. Arguments over choices that seemed small at the time, a missed responsibility, a risk taken without consideration, created a quiet strain in the household. Parents worried, siblings noticed the friction, and the unspoken weight of expectation began to settle on Corey's shoulders. In retrospect, these early experiences were the first cracks in an otherwise orderly life. They hinted at a complexity beneath the surface, a struggle to balance personal desires with family responsibilities, and a growing awareness that life's lessons would not always be easy. Even amidst these challenges, the bond between father and son was strong. Rick worked hard to guide Corey, instilling in him values of loyalty, perseverance, and work ethic. Yet, as is often the case, love alone cannot shield a young person from choices that will eventually define them. The lessons Corey learned, both good and difficult, would become the foundation for the man he was becoming. But they also foreshadowed the heartbreak that lay ahead. What happened in Corey's life that transformed him from a spirited, curious teenager into a man whose future would shock even those closest to him? As Corey Harrison moved from adolescence into early adulthood, the challenges he faced began to grow in intensity. Teenage rebellion, once a series of minor missteps or harmless defiance, gave way to choices with far more serious consequences. A night out with friends, a split-second decision, or a seemingly small act of impulse. All of these moments accumulated, forming a chain of events that would have lasting effects on his life. For the Harrisons, each incident was a reminder that the carefree days of childhood were behind them, replaced by the heavier responsibilities and stakes of adulthood. For Rick Harrison, watching his son navigate these dangerous waters was a struggle of the deepest kind. A father's love, usually a source of comfort and pride, became intertwined with fear and helplessness. He tried interventions, sitting down with Corey to guide him, offering advice grounded in decades of experience and wisdom. Legal counsel was sought when the stakes escalated, and friends and family attempted to support Corey in ways they could, balancing love with accountability. Yet, despite their best efforts, Corey's path proved difficult to redirect. The complexity of human choice, combined with youthful impulsiveness, created a situation that no amount of guidance could immediately fix. The emotional toll on the Harrison family was immense. Rick carried a weight that many public figures never have to confront, balancing the visible persona of a savvy businessman with the private anguish of a father watching his child make life-altering mistakes. Pride in his son's potential clashed constantly with fear over the consequences, and a quiet sense of guilt lingered, questioning whether more could have been done. Friends and colleagues note that even as Corey's situation grew more serious, Rick maintained his devotion, often stepping into the background to protect his family from public scrutiny. Every court date, every news mention, every whispered rumor was another test of endurance, a reminder of how fragile even the strongest family bonds can be when confronted with the law. And yet, the reality was unavoidable. One misstep, one choice, would ultimately define Corey's future. For Rick, love alone could not change what the legal system demanded. The tension between parental devotion and the cold, unyielding consequences of law created a quiet but profound heartbreak. One misstep would ultimately define Corey's future. But could even a father's devotion change the outcome of the law? The courtroom was silent but heavy, a space where the weight of years, choices, and consequences converged in a single, defining moment. For Corey Harrison, the outcome of the trial was no longer just a matter of legal procedure. It was the hinge on which his entire future would turn. When the verdict was read, and the life sentence confirmed, a wave of shock and disbelief rippled through the Harrison family. For Rick, the father who had devoted so much of his life to guiding and protecting his son, the moment was devastating. Fame and financial success offered no protection here. The cameras couldn't soften the blow. The business couldn't shield the heart. Public attention compounded the private anguish. The Harrisons, already familiar to audiences around the world through Pawn Stars, suddenly found their personal pain broadcast alongside their professional accomplishments. Media outlets speculated, rumors swirled, and friends and fans grappled with the contrast between the man they knew on screen and the young man facing a lifetime behind bars. For Rick, there was the constant tension of maintaining a public presence, running the shop, engaging with customers, keeping the business thriving, while wrestling with a deeply personal, unrelenting grief. The duality of his life created an almost unbearable pressure, testing his endurance in ways that few could truly understand. Legal experts have noted that Corey's case reflects a reality that many families quietly experience: the stark difference between youthful mistakes and irreversible legal consequences. What might have once been a correctable misstep became permanent, reshaping the trajectory of his life entirely. Rick's role as a father was tested in a manner that fame could not mitigate. Balancing the demands of the public eye with the private devastation of his son's incarceration required a level of emotional resilience few could imagine. Letters, visits, and attempts at communication became vital lifelines, but each interaction carried a reminder of the life that Corey would never reclaim, and the family that would have to adapt around his absence. Even amidst despair, the Harrison family sought moments of understanding and reflection. Friends described Rick's quiet determination to continue providing love and support for Corey, despite the immensity of the circumstances. Each day brought a mixture of hope, fear, and acceptance, a delicate balance between mourning what was lost and holding on to the possibility of redemption or peace, however limited. How does a family survive when the man they raised is sentenced to spend a lifetime in prison? As Pawn Stars transformed into a global phenomenon, the Harrison family became a fixture on television screens around the world. Fans admired the clever negotiations, the rare collectibles, and the humorous family interactions that unfolded on camera. Yet behind the carefully framed shots and scripted moments, a very different reality persisted. Corey's incarceration remained a private wound, a truth the cameras never captured, yet one that shaped every interaction within the family. The juxtaposition of public recognition and private grief created a tension that was both invisible and inescapable. Rick Harrison's public persona, as composed, savvy, and reliable, masked the emotional turmoil that played out behind closed doors. For those closest to the family, the challenge was to maintain the appearance of normalcy while grappling with the quiet agony of losing a son to the justice system. Every family dinner, every exchange in the shop, carried subtle weight. Laughter could feel hollow at times, and jokes sometimes echoed against the backdrop of unspoken sorrow. Friends and colleagues noted that the Harrison family had mastered the delicate art of compartmentalization, a professional front for the world and a private struggle that was deeply personal and emotionally raw. The production of the show itself introduced another layer of complexity. Authenticity had always been a hallmark of Pawn Stars, But balancing that authenticity with the need for privacy created a unique challenge. The family had to navigate the boundaries between openness and concealment, choosing what could be shared with millions of viewers and what needed to remain protected. In this environment, even small gestures, letters, video calls, and visits with Corey became acts of resilience. They were reminders that, despite physical separation and public scrutiny, the family's bonds remained intact. Moments of hope persisted amid the hardship. The family clung to the idea that Corey might find a measure of redemption or peace, even within the confines of prison walls. Every letter, every conversation, was imbued with care, intention, and a quiet determination to maintain connection. In these ways, the Harrison family demonstrated a steadfast devotion that transcended the limitations imposed by circumstance, a commitment that was both ordinary in its humanity and extraordinary in its endurance. Can the bonds of family survive when life forces them apart in such a permanent and public way? At 59, Rick Harrison carries a quiet authority, one that comes not just from years of running a successful business, but from a lifetime of navigating deeply personal challenges under public scrutiny. The fame of Pawn Stars offered him recognition, but it could not shield him from the emotional weight of his son Corey's life sentence. In interviews and private reflections, Rick speaks with a clarity born of experience, a mixture of acceptance, regret, and enduring love. He reflects not only on Corey's choices but also on his own role as a father, mentor, and protector, acknowledging both successes and failures along the way. Parental responsibility, Rick explains, is rarely straightforward. The line between support and discipline is fine and often shifting. In Corey's case, every intervention, every conversation, every attempt at guidance carried both hope and frustration. Rick's reflections reveal the delicate balance that parents must navigate, offering structure without smothering independence, providing guidance without fostering resentment, and accepting choices that cannot be undone. It is a universal challenge, yet one magnified by the public nature of the Harrison family's life. Fame may have brought wealth and opportunities, but it also amplified every misstep, every rumor, and every moment of scrutiny. Rick's perspective is shaped by both personal and universal truths. He recognizes the psychological toll that families endure in the wake of tragedy, the shame, the confusion, the constant balancing act between protecting loved ones and confronting reality. His honesty is striking. He does not seek to excuse Corey's actions, but he does not vilify them either. Instead, he emphasizes the ongoing effort to reconcile love with loss, the quiet courage required to continue caring, supporting, and hoping, even when outcomes cannot be changed. Through his reflections, Rick offers insight into the endurance of family bonds. He speaks of resilience, of moments of connection, and of the commitment to remain emotionally present, even from a distance. And yet, despite this acceptance and clarity, one question lingers, heavy with both grief and hope. Yet even with understanding and acceptance, one question remains. How does a family heal when the wound is lifelong? Life for the Harrison family did not stop after Corey's sentencing, but it changed in ways both visible and invisible. The rhythms of daily life, once anchored by the presence of a son, brother, and family member, were subtly reshaped. Rick continued to manage the pawn shop, oversee business operations, and engage with fans and media, but every decision carried the quiet weight of his son's absence. Corey's sister, alongside other family members, adjusted routines and interactions, learning to navigate a world where a significant part of their family was behind bars. Even ordinary moments, family meals, casual conversations, or shop interactions, were tinged with the awareness of what was missing. Despite the physical separation, the Harrisons have worked to sustain connection. Letters and visits serve as lifelines, fragile yet vital reminders that love endures even across prison walls. Each exchange carries the duality of hope and reminder. Hope that Corey remains connected to the family, and the stark reality of the permanence and constraints of incarceration. Psychologists emphasize that these challenges are not unique to public families. Incarceration places a lasting emotional toll on families everywhere. Coping requires conscious effort, resilience, and often, professional support to navigate the grief, anxiety, and complicated feelings that arise. For the Harrisons, these psychological pressures exist alongside the scrutiny of a public audience, adding another layer to their emotional load. Protecting the family legacy has become both a mission and a challenge. Rick balances the desire to preserve the family business with the emotional labor of nurturing family bonds. He and his family face the ongoing task of creating stability for themselves while maintaining hope for Corey, a task that requires patience, adaptability, and unwavering dedication. Small victories, a meaningful letter, a successful visit, or a shared memory serve as reminders that bonds can survive, even in the harshest conditions. Yet the tension remains. The distance, the permanence of a life sentence, and the barriers of the system impose limits that are difficult to bridge. Can family love endure beyond freedom, or does the system create barriers too high to overcome? Rick Harrison's story, and that of his son Corey, extends far beyond headlines or public fascination. It is not simply a narrative of crime, consequence, or fame. It is, at its core, a story about human fragility, resilience, and the enduring capacity for love, even in the face of unimaginable hardship. The Harrison family's journey reminds us that no amount of wealth, recognition, or professional success can insulate a family from life-altering struggles. Pain, loss, and heartbreak can reach even those who seem untouchable to the outside world. Yet, amid these challenges, the family demonstrates remarkable empathy and reflection. Rick, his daughter, and other family members continue to navigate the complex emotional landscape of Corey's absence, sustaining bonds through letters, visits, and the quiet work of maintaining family connections. They show that love is not limited to physical presence, and that resilience often takes the form of patience, understanding, and the daily choice to remain connected, even when circumstances make it profoundly difficult. Their journey underscores the importance of human connection and the subtle acts of care that preserve it. Interviews with psychologists and family experts suggest that the Harrison experience mirrors a reality faced by countless families. Those who endure tragedy, shame, or legal consequences must reconcile their personal grief with the practical demands of daily life. Fame and public scrutiny magnify this tension, but the fundamental human experience remains universal. The confirmation of Corey's life sentence by Rick is both a moment of brutal honesty and an act of transparency. By acknowledging the truth openly, the Harrisons invite others to reflect on the delicate balance between responsibility, love, and the effort to forgive both ourselves and those we care about. Ultimately, their story is a lesson in humanity. It asks us to consider how families survive in the face of permanence, how love continues when circumstances seem insurmountable, and what it means to remain emotionally present when life imposes profound separation. It is a narrative of enduring hope, of lessons learned the hard way, and of the quiet, stubborn courage it takes to sustain connection in even the most difficult of circumstances. As the Harrison family continues their journey, the ultimate question remains: can love withstand even the harshest realities, and what does it teach us about forgiveness and resilience?